This is the 21st episode of the Trackside Lounge, so happy birthday and all that sort of thing. Apart from one thing. I mean, old enough to drink, some would say, but I'm doing dry July.
Fair enough.
So, thanks, but hang on. No sugar, no carbs, natural, no alcohol. That'll do me fine for the next month. So let's get started. I want to start out this week with a call out to some Kiwis that are performing really, really well in the States. I know we normally go for the obvious one, but this one is all about speedway. It's all about dirt track racing. First up, Jaden Basile. Jaden, his dad, Neville Basile, out of Nelson, was a brilliant midget driver and sprint car driver. Jaden picked up the mantle and has been doing some brilliant racing over the last couple of years. Went up to the States and he's racing in what they call the micro series, which is it's like TQs with a wing on top. And they are wicked fast little things. The structure of them is different to a TQ. The engine's almost by your knees, like just inside the cockpit, so it has a better centre of balance. He was racing in the weekend at the KKM Challenge in Sweet Springs. Nice. Didn't win. Woohoo! Didn't get anywhere, but at least he's racing again on July 12th. Now, then we move into sprint car racing. Zachary Sokol, who is Ozzy Sokol's son, they're up doing some racing. In the weekend, they were racing in Bloomington. Zach got a heat win out of that one, but the big winner on Saturday night was Max Guilford, who is the New Zealand #1 sprint car driver, who's having a great season up in the States again. He's been up there for a couple of years. He's doing real well. However, Sunday night, not so good. If you go on Max's Facebook page and take a look at his second run where he says things didn't go as well as I planned. He's coming into the corner, the car just spins around, jumps the curb, gets going the wrong way, and he arrows another guy coming in, and they're sprint cars, so that's like 900 horsepower, 1,800 horsepower coming together in one. No one was injured, so testament to that. But and also Maxie just gets on with it, get the car fixed and we'll go racing again. So he's having a good time up there. So you three guys, can't wait to when you come back to New Zealand and we get underway in the speedway season here. So looking forward to that, but well done, guys.
Fantastic. Well,
yeah, mate.
That's going to be one to look out for. And on the subject of fast-flying dirt, we had plenty of fast-flying action at Waiuku on the weekend.
Really?
We're not going to go for the low-hanging fruit. I like that. Let's talk about something a bit different to start off the show anyway. And Waiuku Dirt Track had their second round of the Forest Series at the Waiuku State Forest. And the King of the Hill, which is the fastest car, and it was actually a 6-cylinder production. It's actually a guy who watches the show, Justin Davies. So well done, Justin. JD, the big man there, and he actually normally runs in a UTV, but he's gone to
what's a UTV?
They're like the ATVs, like the off-road vehicles out in the WOP. So they're like the
hot rodded up farm vehicles.
Yeah.
Right, but just for a second I was thinking ATV. Yeah, I've got one of those in the lounge. But let's not talk about that. So okay.
Here we go.
It's one of those.
Seamless.
It looks like a farm vehicle.
Remember Dry July?
Okay.
Yeah. But a very, very fast farm vehicle. But anyway, so Justin was in his Falcon, and there's some really cool stuff in the future with JD. So we're certainly quite keen to see how that all plays out. But yeah, big turnout again at Waiuku, and they had some sensational driving out there. And the next one is in a couple of weeks' time on the 13th of July. So if you want to get out there and watch it, round 3, I think we've got another 2 after that as well. So, but I do want a little bit of I don't know if you know the history of this forestry series that they have there, Nick. Some years ago, I happened to be there watching a very, very unusual race vehicle.
Yeah, so the Waiuku, the rally's pretty much a come one, come all. If you can chuck gravel tyres on it, you can race it. And I mean, you see street stocks, you see regular cars, you see proper cars,
rally
like
car,
you say,
forward drive,
UTVs and all that. And Ryan Turner decided to chuck some gravel tyres on his modified, burn a bit of methanol before I believe it was due for a rebuild or something.
Aren't modifieds designed to only turn left?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, if you take the caster out of it, you can. But
Stagger,
no clutch, no. Well, I think he had a pretty primitive clutch, didn't he? Something to at least get it going. But and then that we did a video on that, and Dad sort of followed his day, and the response that we got was just phenomenal. It was a lot of lot of pissed off Americans for some reason.
You can't do that.
America has a very different definition of what's a modified than New Zealand.
Right.
So that was mainly the not controversy, but that was the sort of the majority of those comments.
You've got to remember that they spell aluminium wrong.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
And just in case you're looking, aluminium or aluminum, it's actually aluminium. It was invented at the same time on both sides of the Atlantic. It went to the patent office, and the first one patented was the English pronunciation of aluminium. It's just that in the American patent office, they couldn't spell, and that is the truth.
They don't like the letter U, and that's why they don't have a check. They have a check, and that's why they don't have tires. They have tires, and don't even start.
This has been your periodic table moment with the Trackside Lounge.
So the next round is on the 13th of July there for Waiuku Dirt Track Club. Now we had some other little interesting snippets as well on the motor racing front. And one of the big things that people come back to me with is the update on SVG from the weekend before, not the weekend just gone, the weekend before.
Yeah.
Now we saw the crewman, his crew.
Nailed.
He got absolutely drilled.
What a Hercules though! Did you realise? And I was told, you were told. I think we were all told.
He put his hand up to
Yeah.
deflect himself.
He did the look, I'm okay, and he carried on with business. But then obviously post race, he's a little bit more banged up than that, isn't he?
Sent him to the medical centre, and it turns out he's got 2 broken ribs and a partially punctured lung. And if you watch him after the impact, he's brushing, like you said, he's brushing everything off, getting back to his job. He's got that rattle going on with absolute, dexterity. Fantastic effort there from it. I know that's my big word for the day, but it was fair, And then he goes afterwards. And how often do we see this where the adrenaline kicks in, not just for the drivers, but obviously for the crew? And then the guy shakes himself off and goes, I better go and get checked out later on. And bang, 2 broken ribs and a partially punctured lung.
So he actually finished the pit stop, didn't he?
Yeah.
He got clobbered. He actually finished. So he did that with broken
job.
ribs and oh wow. If you've ever doubted the quality of a good team, of a good pit crew, I think that's your textbook moment right there.
Oh, unbelievable.
That is. And speaking of SVG, he was racing the weekend, wasn't he? Back on the ovals again, and we talked about how ovals are not its great place to be, but he did all right.
Did well.
Racing in Atlanta, 24th, I think.
Overall 24th.
Overall 24th, but
2 stage top 10s.
Best of the Trackhouse cars.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's about. Because they run 3 or 4 cars,
4
I
cars,
think, different variants. So not Trackhouse's best day, but as is always the case with these sorts of events, they just, hey, look, we'll brush it off, we'll go again next week, because they can do that. Unlike some other series where they don't race for a month and a bit, they can go again next week.
Sorry.
Whoa,
got a cough.
There we go.
Cheers.
Speaking of an event that is coming back, the first of the Pro Series was this weekend for the mega racing, and that was at Hampton Downs. You guys went along?
Absolutely flooded. Rain soaked. We drove through some torrential rain to get there, and when I arrived, because I showed up and the firecracker had been red flagged,
right?
So they were obviously playing clean up and all that, and I was talking to some of the drivers, like Kevin Hilt, obviously, and that lovely Zed we've talked about before, and they said, I said to him, I said, well, look, have you had a dry line yet? And he goes, we almost got one. We almost got one, sort of the top of like turn 2 and 3, it was starting to come dry. The top of the dipper there, it was, you're starting to see a bit of dry, and then the rain just came right away. I mean, you were never going to get any rubber down in the first place.
Yeah.
But, and sometimes that's the tricky part too. If it's fully dry, that's cool. If it's fully wet, it's cool. When you're stuck in that sort of Goldilocks moment where that corner's a bit drier than that corner, and that, it's very greasy.
You got to tiptoe around, don't you?
That can almost be worse than if it was just fully wet. Fully wet, at least you know what you're signing up for.
So this is the big question. Was there any accidents?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, there was and you mentioned the firecracker. And the firecracker, one of the, I won't say which one, because that wouldn't be 10-4, but the BMW had a little bit of whoopsie daisy, taken out the front end, and he'd had a oil cooler go. And so he knew the car was still drivable, didn't realise the cooler had gone, and proceeded from his incident at, I think it was in the dipper, all the way down the straight, round turn 10, back up through the pits, and left a huge trail. So that's why they red flagged it, because they had to sort that out. And the other thing too was that there had been heavy rain the 2 or 3 days beforehand, and they had no rubber. There was no rubber there at all on the track. And I know that sounds ridiculous. You see a skid mark being laid down by someone doing a skid. You think that rubber's there forever, but it's incredible how quickly it washed away, and people just could not believe in the traction. But in the pro, the pro, they had a good turnout and some good racing, and then all the contact they had were incidents of people losing control. Although there was one incident. And I know this person's watching because all we care about is Roxanne.
Yes.
And Roxanne in the dipper, there's a little Suzuki Swift minding its own business on the pole line coming down into the dipper, and Roxanne's out here nice and wide. It wasn't Zane driving. I won't say who it was, Tony, but it wasn't Zane. And coming round the corner and unfortunately not seeing the little Suzuki, and Roxanne got damaged in the left rear and just turned around, which unfortunately wrecked the rim on the Suzuki, but kept going. They both all kept going, and that was cool. And then, of course, the Roxanne update, which is the most important update of the whole thing.
Oh, yeah.
Did actually drop a front suspension bolt too.
I saw that. So they were doing really
Very
well too.
unusual.
I think they were in for a class win.
Yes, easily.
And then, just one of those freak, what do you do to prepare for that?
And at the time, Roxanne was 4th overall. She was absolutely flying, and just theirs to throw. And unfortunately, a broken part, but they fixed that as well. Got the car, got her back on the track, and everyone was happy. But yeah, that was. Towards the end, I think the last couple of hours, I think they started to get some dry lines. And our old mate Jared Chitty, Mr. Waiuku, radiated the mufflers in the Dick Johnson Falcon. He had him and Graham had a fantastic run, and that car they were actually, and something that those two don't do very well is drive sensibly instead of ringing the daylights out of it. They both drove really well for like 4 hours, and then they had a few brake issues, nothing dramatic there, but had a few braking issues. They started to get like a dry line, and the Falcon came across the checkered flag too, and they just got a whole lot of points and big smiles because he came out to a test day before at the last Lemons and had gearbox issues there. So, good time to shake that car down, and everything was reliable. So Roxanne finished, the Falcon finished, holding them forward, and some BMWs in between, which did really well. So that was a fantastic little weekend there, a fantastic Saturday for the pro.
No, that was, and again, they're racing again in Taupo in a couple of weeks' time.
Yep.
So,
how long does the schedule run for the Pro Series?
4 rounds.
4 rounds spread across. I think it's probably a couple of weeks. Couple of weeks in between each of them.
Yep.
So,
all right.
Yep.
So everyone prepares well for that.
After Taupo, it's back to Hampton on the short track again, and then the last round is 2 or 3 weeks after that, and it's the big track, which not many people get to run.
So
the
that's a pretty rare
track.
privilege. So to have that come up as an opportunity, obviously there's people that will be keen to do that race just to drive on the international track.
Are you driving?
I'd love to.
Oh, hang on.
I would love to do the
I
last
just saw a hand go up and I thought, so you're driving, and then you said you'd love to. So no one's actually offered you a drive?
Well, we've got cars.
If there's anyone that would like to give him a drive in the international round,
I'll be really good. I'll behave myself and look after your car.
If there's anyone who'd like to give me a drive or Nick a drive, or we should do a Trackside Lounge Wildcard entry.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, God.
Wouldn't that be
there
cool?
we go.
Okay. Hey, we could use the fast car.
If you'd like to support the running of a Trackside Lounge Wildcard entry into the Pro Series finale, anyway, we'll put that one on.
The thing about that, though, is both these guys can drive. I can drive like a car, but when it comes to racing, I'm fine on the track by myself. But when there's other cars out there, those pricks just want to hit you. Looking at no one in particular, but there you go.
Yeah.
So, But hey, if you got a car, these guys will race for you.
Easy. Plenty of other little snippets that went on during the last week or so as well there. And I think the main thing obviously is, well, not the main thing, but one of the really cool things has been the second of 3 races there for Hayden Paddon. And he has been a busy boy. Not so good in Ireland. We talked about that last week, but on the weekend just gone, it was in Belgium, and man, he was out there vying for the top, and doing the business. And Nick, I don't know how to pronounce this guy's name, but he came second. Anyway, Hayden came second with a second of his co-drivers there, because he's actually running with 3 different co-drivers. One, the Irish one, this one in Belgium. And now he's back with John this week. In
is that so that he's
Aussie.
got an Irish driver who recognises the street names?
Recognises the dialect, possibly.
Yeah, it could be.
I thought John had retired.
John retired about 2 years ago. I don't know how Hayden got him back, but he's been driving with him. Because I remember
seeing the news at the time that John Kennard had retired from co-driving, and Hayden, that was the whole thing, was he'd been with Hayden.
Well, I think that John Kennard retired, they cloned him. And but John, like, I don't know how he does it, because you've got to be a special breed, don't you, to be a rally navigator. I get car sick, watching you on the what do they call those virtual things? I can't do the virtual things.
Yeah.
How the heck can these guys be in the silly seat? And you don't have a lot of. I need airflow, and I'm terrible with motion sickness.
Many years ago at I think it was Big Boys Toys or something, they had a virtual reality one of those gaming setups. And he had to go around Bathurst in, I think it was just a road going like a Tommy Mackinnon Evo or something, and he was already on the verge of throwing
Probably
up after 2 laps.
Slow or something. I don't know. It's horrible.
The interesting thing about that, though, is I spoke to John Kennard a long time ago about being the navigator in a car. I said, have you ever driven a rally car and had someone else navigate for you? He said, that's the weird thing. You get so attuned to reading the road and reading your notes and reading the notes, you can't put it together when you're driving. If you're a navigator, it's very, very hard to get it and hear someone else telling you, because they'll say something, you'll think, well, no, that's not a 10 flat out, that's a 6, and I probably need to be in a gear lower or something like that. So he said, I'm not the greatest driver, but I'm a pretty good navigator.
But what about Rodger Freeth? I mean, for how many years? I mean, Rodger Freeth, if you don't know who Rodger Freeth is, has since gone, sadly, but Rodger Freeth actually, was a fantastic driver in himself. And then he helped out Possum with different telemetries and things like that, and all of a sudden he was in the car. He was brilliant as a navigator.
He was more into his motorbikes, though, wasn't he?
Oh,
I think he was more of a motorbike guy than a car. Not saying that he wasn't good in a car, but I think he was more motorbike.
Well, he was up until he bought Trevor Crow's old Starlet that had a Rover in it. And that's where he was known in the CRC car.
Have you ever seen any of the footage of the rudimentary telemetry equipment that
when he first started?
Yeah, when
it was pieces of string,
and sliders, and he had a video camera on it, so that as he was going around the track, he could measure how much force was being put into each shock and that sort of thing. And he developed his own telemetry system so he could set the car up for racing. Absolutely brilliant guy.
You did right, because he actually had a camera focused on the measurement. Didn't give a rat's bum about what was happening outside the car. It was all inside the car.
He knew where he was
That's
going.
right. He knew what he was doing. And I remember seeing him go around Pookie, and you're right. I think he had a scale of like 0, and I stand corrected, to like 10, or it might have been to 5. I'm pretty sure it was the higher number to 10. And this thing would, as you go around the corner, would come up to, and that was effectively a G-force and all that sort of stuff. So wow.
And he was such a, I don't know about visionary, but he all this technology that we have now, and even the circumstances of his death pioneered safety going forward. So it was just everything about him, as far as motorsport and his involvement, contributed to the safety of what we've got. Today you watch rally guys go off at hundreds of k's an hour into a vineyard, and they walk away.
And we can talk about what happened there, and the actual fact that the harness was attached to the body of the car, and that's unfortunately what caused the passing. But then from there on, you did right, taking that into a positive note. Everyone now has their harness mounted to the cage, which doesn't move in the floor of the car. So you're 100% right. Yeah. He is actually responsible for saving many, many lives in motorsport.
Pop quiz, hot shots. We talk about what was achieved by Dr. Rodger Freeth in the motorsport world, and what has come of that. He's a genuine hero, genuine hero. Not just of the rally world, but of the motorsport world worldwide, not just New Zealand. So I class him as one of my heroes. You two guys, motorsport hero.
I've got my one.
We'll go on then.
I was waiting for you.
Oh, I
really?
Don't know.
Look, to me, it's easy. It's Bruce McLaren. And I totally agree with what you're saying about Rodger Freeth. You're bang on. But I say Bruce McLaren, and only for the simple fact that Bruce, brought himself up by his shoestraps. I mean, his lucky thing for him was Dad owned the Remuera service station and workshop in the back. He built his first car. Him and Dad, got together. But Dad basically said, right, I've done this much, now you do it yourself. And he had to get that little Ulster Austin, I think it was called. Got that going, and then he did hill climbs. It was all his own momentum. He wasn't doing it to please Daddy or anyone else. He just did it for himself, and he had to find the money, he had to work for everything. And then he learned all about engineering, he learned about building cars. He got given the chance for Cooper to go and drive an F2 car, I think, from memory. And John Cooper says to him, so he has to go over to, he won the driver to Europe, and you were hosted by John Cooper and everything. I think he was an F2 car, stand corrected. And John says, your car's over there, boy. And he has a look over there, and I don't see a car. And there's a whole lot of tubes in the racking, and he had to build his own car. He had to build his own car.
And of course, that ends up being the McLaren.
Yeah.
racing team that we know and love today up in Formula 1. And you've had your time now, Nathan.
Oh, God.
Come on, Nathan, no pressure.
I don't know. There's so many people.
Dry July.
Well, that's the thing, eh?
There are so
many people.
To name a single... I mean...
I'll tell you what, how about this? You tell us who your hero is next week.
Oh, God.
All right, you've got plenty of time. Plenty of time.
Okay.
And meantime, if you want to send in who you think your hero is.
Who's your hero?
Yep.
By
Let
all
us know.
means.
Let us know.
By all means, just stick in the comments and the YouTube thing, we can get away with it.
I'll tell you what, though, Rodger Freeth, Dr. Rodger Freeth, and Bruce McLaren, you've got some real big, people to try and find. Although it might be someone who's not necessarily in the big name and that in motorsport and in New Zealand motorsport. I'd love to hear who your heroes are.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
So we talked about rally in Belgium.
Yep.
Something else that happened in Belgium over the weekend was the Spa 24.
Jeez, for a second I thought you were going to say it was World War III. But so how was? Because that's the third.
That was the third.
Race
that was the third of the 24-hour triple header, I suppose, triple crown. What an event! So that's the smallest of the tracks. We've had Le Mans, we've had Nürburgring. They're 10 plus Ks, 20 Ks for the Nürburgring. Spa's 7. So even by GT racing standards, that's huge. But in this triple header, that's only 2 minutes a lap. Grasser Racing taking their first win for Lamborghini, and I think
really?
Spa is one of those really awesome races where I can't remember the exact thing, but I think a different manufacturer has won every year for the last, I think it's like 5, probably 6 now years.
Wow.
So Lamborghini have finally won it. Grasser Racing have finally won. It was debut wins for the team and for the drivers. And they took advantage of safety cars. There was a full course yellow that covered one of their big pit stops, which that was sort of the crucial one. And interestingly enough too, all three, so Lamborghini's won 3 big 24. So this one, they won 2018 and 2019 in Daytona.
Yep.
So that's their 3 big 24-hour wins. They've all been with Grasser Racing, and they've all had Mirko Bortolotti behind the wheel.
Good.
So he's and it's also a interesting full circle moment for Bortolotti because he drove the first ever Huracan GT3 a decade ago.
Oh, really?
Wow.
So,
geez, are they a decade old?
And you know what that shows about Bortolotti, doesn't it? He's completely not focused on one make or model. He's just driving anything. Yeah. He's a complete hussy.
Yeah.
In a nice way.
So that's and obviously it comes as Lamborghini, if the rumours are to be believed, they're on the cusp of replacing the Huracan with their whatever comes next.
Yeah.
No inside words yet, or what? I've heard that it's going to have a lot more horsepower.
If you've heard that Lamborghini were working on an electric car,
don't.
It's not that.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. But so that was, Spa's such a cool race. I think it's probably one of the bigger grids as well because there's just such, like you say, local talent, and you got your GT3 pros, but then you've also got guys that just go to that race.
Why did he say electric cars? You just ruined the whole flow. Electric cars.
We'll crap him out from the shot for that one.
Yeah, try and just segmentise him. He's on Dry July.
And I'm back.
You've actually brought up an interesting one. I don't know if we were going to talk about this week, but he's brought up electric cars. Do we care about Formula E? And the reason I ask this is obviously it's a bit of a controversial take because there are Kiwis in Formula E that are doing really well.
Kiwis,
right?
Yeah.
What I'm getting at is that when Formula E first launched, it was the future. Electrification was all the rage.
Yep.
It was very, very forward thinking. And in a few years, Formula One is going to be electric. That was the sort of thing.
Yeah, because they'd already started with the hybrid drivetrains and all that sort of thing.
Yeah. And
they had hybrid in the WRC as well at the time.
Yeah. And I'm not taking away from the performance of Formula E. I think they've only recently released their Gen 3 car, which is now pretty much on pace with some very, very fast cars around global racing tracks.
Yeah.
So my question is, now that the world is sort of coming away from electrification, Ram have scrapped it. Porsche are starting to look at alternative fuels instead of outright electrification. Toyota have been an advocate for hydrogen since like 2001.
BMW,
which of course,
for a big hydrogen use.
So now that global narrative is starting to sort of shift, do we still care about Formula E, and is Formula E still relevant as far as being cutting edge and forward-thinking tech? Consider that one.
We've got, so Nick Cassidy and Mitch Evans both drive in Formula E.
Yep.
Yeah. Emma Gilmore was driving for the Extreme.
She did. She was
driving for McLaren.
Yep.
And of course the Kiwis are driving for Jaguar. I don't know if I care about it, but one thing, and I'm not even being silly here, one thing haven't heard anything of is them catching fire. I stand corrected.
Yeah.
Have you heard of a fire?
This is the thing. I'm not talking about we don't care. Formula E should shut down.
No.
But it's just when it first launched, it was the future. It was forward thinking. It was visionary. It was it was supposed to be the forefront. But now that sort of electrification narrative is not quite, all cars aren't going to be electric by 2028 or anything, right? Is it still as relevant? Is it still as I don't think it's going to overtake Formula One in popularity.
No.
Because again, Formula One's just such a perfect. They've got a great thing going on, but
I'm going to stop you there.
Not perfect.
I'm going to take the devil's advocate here on this one, and I'm going to say that it's just another form of motorsport. It doesn't matter where the power comes from. These guys are putting it down and they're racing, and Kiwis are doing really well in it. So you're right. It's not going to replace Formula One. I don't think it's going to replace IndyCar. There is talk of electric NASCARs. In fact, the Chevrolet debuted one a couple of weeks ago. And there's an electric Ford Mustang, and they raced both the Chevy Camaro and the Mustang, ran them around a big oval just to show that it could be done. Then, of course, they had to plug them in for a bit, and 9 hours later, they were ready to go again. So I don't think it's going to be like that. But let's just take the high ground. It's another form of motorsport that Kiwis are doing pretty well in, which just underlines, I think, the talent that's here. If you can do it and make it work, great. I don't care what you drive, as long as you drive it, because it's driving that counts.
But Nathan said, do we care about Formula E? And I do not. And I'll tell you why. I watch them on the telly. I listen to them on the telly. I hear them downshifting, and it still sounds like a radio-controlled car. It sounds like a straight gear. Yeah, to be honest, if it wasn't for the straight gears and the gearbox, and they do have 6, 7, 8-speed gearboxes, if it wasn't for that, it would be bat poo boring. And the Kiwis are in there. The only reason why I actually watch to see the results more than I see the racing, because the racing, and this is what really annoys me with Formula E, is they race on made circuits. So any track that they go to that's a normal track, if there is such a thing with Formula E, they dumb it down somehow. They've got a different chicane. So you can't say, hey, what's Corey's car doing and that lap around da-da-da-da-da, and then you go and put a Formula E car out there. You can't do a comparison between there's nothing, because it's a unique track to them. And that's what really pickles me, that I can't say. You say, they go quite well, and they do, but how fast do they go? What lap times? What will they do around Hampton or around Pookie or around Bathurst or whatever the case may be?
I think that's, again, it's one of those ones that they are evolving. And like I said, I'm not here to say that Formula E should be shut down or it's that bad. Oh, shut up. Okay. But, the first gen, right, the first Formula E cars were abysmally slow. They had to make race courses that were basically go-kart tracks.
They had to run 2 cars in a race.
They had to have go-kart tracks to keep them exciting, right? The Gen 2, bit quicker. Yes, like you say, they're not quite there as far as doing, the same racetracks that GT or Hypercar or anything are racing at. But now they've got this Gen 3 car, and like you say, every year, every generation, they are getting faster and faster, but they're still not there yet. Like you say, they always have the... what was it? Shanghai I saw recently. So they used the Shanghai Grand Prix circuit where Formula One race, but they cut out about probably 1.5 km of it. They cut out the long straight and they cut out some of the... So you still can't compare them to any category because it's the Formula E layout.
But so question about this then. Pit stops. I know Formula One doesn't have fueling anymore. No. And I'm assuming that Formula E doesn't have.
They have a rapid charge system. So I think it's someone will correct me on this, but I think you can plug it in and it'll give you something like 20% battery in 30 seconds. So it's a top up. It's not a fuel up.
Yeah. So it's not as good as say a Red Bull pit stop that takes 2 seconds for 4 tires, poof, and they're out again.
But they have to. I think they all have to do one. Right. So they all get a 30-second. If everyone serves that penalty, then it's not a penalty, is it?
So worst case scenario then is if we look at Formula E, it's a great place to develop strategies, and it's a great testing ground, and it's a great place for Kiwis to go and succeed. So,
but I've got bile in the back of my throat, so we need to finish on something other than Formula E. Like Motorsport Australia have just signed off on the Mustang Cup for 2026 using the Dark Horse R Mustang V8,
Now,
no electric.
now if they'd used the Mach-E Mustang, that would have been funny.
No. Mustang, Dark Horse, R, and it is signed off for 2026. I'm looking forward to seeing those things go, but they were at Le Mans as well.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it was the same spec, but they had a Mustang Invitational race at Le Mans, and I was a bit confused by that at first. I didn't because I saw the photo. They do on the starting grid, all the cars all arranged. Here's how many Mustangs we've got. And I was like, crikey, there must be like 30 or 40 Mustangs. I thought that was for the actual 24-hour race. I didn't realise they were running like an invitational. I thought there was going to be like some Mustang like wildcard class, but and then was it Cameron McLeod ended up winning that one?
McConville,
McLeod.
Yeah, McConville, wasn't it?
No, McLeod.
Okay, we'll edit that out. And then McLeod did a really good job. He drove, and of course he's a reserve supercar driver for the Enduros as well. So good on him. And hey, if that's the same spec as they bring in next year to Aussie for the whole season. Although the question was asked on a forum, I thought it was a good question too. Is this the same or different to the Porsche class? Isn't this what the Porsche class is supposed to be doing? So what they were doing was they were questioning why Ford Australia were doing it, bearing in mind this is the feeder class of the high horsepower cars. Good question.
Ford Australia, I think, the Australian motoring scene is pretty dead as far as there's no Holden, there's no Falcon, there's no Australian cars. So what little they can do to enrich that scene, I think, is always going to be met with open arms and very welcome. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting prospect. Is it going to be the same as the Porsche Cup? Well, are they manual or are they paddle?
We'll find out. After the break.
We'll do a bit of research on that. But yeah, look, hey, I don't think anyone's ever angry with more categories.
No.
The only sort of telling thing is going to be if that category flourishes or if it just kind of fades off into obscurity, like TCR unfortunately has, because TCR was supposed to be the next great thing, and now you just don't see them anywhere.
No.
So.
As you can tell, there's a little bit of work being done in the workshop here at Logical. So it's almost time for us to end up this episode, the 21st, to celebrate. And we didn't mention Formula One, so I'm going to end this one with, well done, Liam Lawson. Got sixth, started sixth, got sixth, held your place, got some points. Nice one, mate. What happened to the other Red Bull drivers?
Yeah, but you know what was really cool about seeing Liam do? I can't believe we haven't mentioned. I know we were not wanting to be the cherry pickers there on the low-hanging fruit. Wow, but the really cool thing about Liam, and I know everyone out there saying, oh, he's going to do this and he's going to do that now. No, but what was really cool about Red Bull was that he qualified. He practiced well. He qualified well. And by crikey, when he got almost taken out at turn 2, like Max did. Almost. And he was that. So he was a bit lucky, because if you'd imagine that he'd been taken out at the same time, I mean, all Slowson and all this sort of. So what do they call him now? I already saw someone call. So does that mean he's now going to be Liam Fasten instead of Liam Slowson? I think that was quite a good one. So, but good to see consistent weekend from him. And he also didn't take any drinks either, did he?
He didn't drink the entire one. Yeah, he was pretty knackered after that.
So this one's for you, Liam.
I think it was just... Yeah, there you go. Cheers. I mean, hey, look, stoked for him to actually be smiling after a Grand Prix.
Yeah.
Obviously, Max being taken out, Yuki abysmally low, and then whatever happened to Rodger? Did he just kind of
just didn't
not feature? Yeah.
No.
So, but interestingly enough, on the coverage, there was just very little mention of Liam. Very little sort of... They didn't really seem to give him too much airtime. The real underrated one, though, Hulkenberg, P20 to P9.
Didn't hear about that.
Just nobody,
No. Wow.
Well, he's looking for a contract for next year. But aren't they all? See you for episode 22.